Two trembling puppies stopped a little girl on a lonely road. Their pleading eyes begged her to follow what she discovered moments later would break everyone's heart. The afternoon heat pressed heavy over the narrow stretch of road, the air rippling like glass beneath the sun. Dust clung to the weeds along the ditch, and the world seemed too busy to notice what lay hidden in its shadows. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than a discarded burlap sack, just another piece of trash thrown carelessly into the roadside. But inside that torn sack, life still lingered. A German shepherd mother lay curled against the gravel, her body trembling with each shallow breath. Her once proud coat was matted with dirt and streaked with dried blood. One hind leg bent at a cruel angle, twisted unnaturally beneath her weight. Flies buzzed lazily around her, settling on wounds she no longer had the strength to chase away. Her chest rose and fell slowly, a fragile rhythm, as if every inhale might be her last. She had no energy left to cry, no voice to call for help. And yet, she wasn't alone. Pressed against her side were two tiny pups, no more than 6 or 7 weeks old. Their fur, once pale cream and golden, was dulled by grime and oil. Their ribs showed faintly beneath their thin frames, but it was not hunger that gripped them most. It was fear. Fear that the one they trusted above all else was slipping away. The mother's eyes flickered open at the faint movement beside her. Too weak to lift her head, she watched her little ones with a gaze that was equal parts love and resignation. She could not rise. She could not lead them to safety. All she could do was remain still, tethered to the earth, while her pups wrestled with a choice no creature so young should ever face. At first, they stayed pressed close, whimpering softly into the folds of her fur. But as the minutes dragged on, an instinct deeper than their fear stirred. Mama wasn't getting up. And so, trembling on unsteady legs, they did the only thing left to do. One paw forward, then another. The first pup stumbled, nearly collapsing, but forced itself upright. The second followed, eyes wide, ears flicking at every sound. Together, they tottered out from the shadow of the sack, leaving behind the only warmth they had ever known. The road stretched before them, shimmering in the heat. Trucks roared past in the distance, sending waves of hot air into the stillness. The puppies did not understand the danger. All they knew was that somewhere out there was the help their mother so desperately needed. And so, though their legs quivered and their breaths came quick, they stepped into the world. The old sedan hummed steadily as it rolled down the quiet back road, its tires crunching over loose gravel. Inside, the air smelled faintly of pine sap and worn leather. Emily Carter, still in her police uniform from the morning shift, kept one hand steady on the wheel, her eyes scanning the road ahead with the casual alertness of someone who had seen too much to ever completely relax. Beside her, 10-year-old Sarah slumped against the window, her cheek pressed to the cool glass. The day had been long errands in town, a quick stop at the station to pick up paperwork, and now, finally, they were headed home. Sarah's eyelids drooped as the trees blurred by in streaks of green and gold. For a while, the only sounds were the hum of the engine and the faint hiss of cicadas in the late summer heat. Emily reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. "Almost there, kiddo," she said softly. But then Sarah's body jolted upright. Her eyes widened, locking onto a strange flicker of movement near the roadside. Two small shapes staggered across the gravel, their legs wobbling as if they might collapse at any moment. For a heartbeat, Sarah thought they were wild animals, maybe fox kits. But no, there was something different in the way they moved, in the desperate urgency of their tiny bodies. "Mama, stop the car," she shouted, her voice sharp with alarm. Emily's head snapped toward her. "What is it?" Sarah pointed frantically through the windshield. "Over there, look, puppies." Emily pressed her foot against the brake. The car lurched, dust exploding into the air. Sarah's heart raced as she leaned forward, hands pressed to the dashboard. Through the haze, she could see them clearly now, two German shepherd pups, no bigger than stuffed toys, staggering toward the road as if the world itself had pushed them out to be seen. Emily barely had the car in park before Sarah shoved the door open and jumped onto the gravel. "Sarah, wait!" her mother called, but the girl was already moving, sneakers crunching against the dusty roadside. The two pups froze at the sound. For a moment, they looked ready to scatter back into the weeds. But then something shifted. Instead of running, they turned toward her. Sarah slowed her steps, lowering herself to a crouch just a few feet away. The heat pressed down on her back, dust clung to her knees, but she barely noticed. All she could see were those tiny creatures, thin, trembling, their paws raw from stumbling over rocks. One of them tottered forward, so unsteady it nearly toppled. It pressed its small, filthy paws against the front of her jeans, stretching its body upward as if trying to climb into her lap. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The other pup circled close, letting out a high-pitched whimper. Its dark eyes locked on hers, wide and desperate. There was no aggression, no fear in their movements, only pleading. "Hey, little guys," Sarah whispered, her voice quivering with both awe and worry. "It's okay, I see you. We have no one." Emily had stepped out of the car now, her boots crunching on the gravel as she joined her daughter. Her brows furrowed, concern settling over her features. The pup against Sarah gave another soft push, as if urging her. The second one darted a few steps back toward the ditch, then turned, ears pricked, eyes flicking between the humans and the shadowed roadside. It barked once thin and fragile, but insistent. Sarah felt her pulse race. They weren't just asking for food. They weren't asking to be picked up. They wanted something more. "Mama," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They want us to follow." Emily's gaze followed the pup as it darted again toward the weeds. Her instincts honed from years in uniform stirred sharply. She nodded, her voice low but steady. "Then we'd better listen." The puppies didn't wait long. With a shiver of determination, they turned and trotted back toward the weeds, their tails trembling but their steps sure. Every few seconds, one of them glanced over its shoulder, making sure the humans were following. Sarah's small hand clutched tightly at her mother's sleeve as they left the gravel road. Branches scratched at her arms, and the air grew thicker under the cover of trees. Her heart hammered in her chest, torn between fear and hope. Then she saw it. At first, it looked like nothing more than a dark shape pressed against the ground, half hidden by tall grass and the remnants of a torn burlap sack. But as they drew closer, Sarah's breath hitched. It was a dog, a large German shepherd. Her body twisted unnaturally, fur streaked with dried blood and dust. The sight rooted Sarah in place. Her throat tightened, and hot tears blurred her vision. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking. She's dying." The pups rushed to their mother's side, pressing against her neck, licking her muzzle with frantic desperation. They whined and nudged as if trying to will her back to life. Emily crouched instantly, the tone of her training taking over. She pressed 2 fingers lightly against the dog's chest. For one agonizing moment, there was nothing. Then a faint, thready pulse beneath her touch. Weak, fragile, but still there. "She's alive," Emily said firmly, though her voice was hushed with the weight of it. Sarah fell to her knees beside the broken body. The ground was damp and cold, soaking through her jeans, but she didn't care. She reached out one trembling hand, stopping just short of touching the dog's muzzle. The shepherd's eyes flickered open at the movement. They were tired eyes, glassy with pain, but they held no anger, no fear, just a quiet acceptance, as if she had been waiting for this very moment, waiting for someone to see her. Sarah's tears spilled freely now. She choked out a whisper, barely audible over the rustle of the leaves. "We found you. We're here. On the stack too." Emily's jaw tightened as she took in the bent leg, the shallow breaths, the stillness of a body holding on only by will. She glanced at her daughter, then back at the fragile family pressed together in the dirt. Her voice was low, steady, carrying the kind of promise Sarah would never forget. "We're not leaving them here." Emily's fingers moved quickly to the radio at her belt. Her voice, usually crisp and steady, cracked just slightly. "This is Carter. I've found a German Shepherd adult female, badly injured. 2 pups with her. We need help. Please, hurry." A crackle of static filled the air, followed by the calm reply, "Copy that, Officer Carter. Hold position. Help is on the way." Emily exhaled slowly, the weight of urgency pressing against her chest. She looked down at her daughter. "They're coming, Sarah. We just have to keep her comfortable until then." Sarah nodded quickly, her face blotchy from tears. She tugged off her small jacket and laid it gently across the shepherd's trembling body. "Here," she whispered, smoothing the fabric with tiny hands. "It's not much, but maybe it'll make her feel safe." The mother dog flinched at the touch of cloth, then stilled, as if recognizing the softness for what it was. Her pups huddled closer, wedging themselves beneath the jacket's edge, pressing their tiny bodies against Sarah's knees. Sarah bent low, her voice trembling but filled with determination. "It's okay. You're not alone anymore. We're right here." Emily crouched beside her, one hand resting on her daughter's back. She could feel Sarah's little body shaking, though whether from fear or resolve, she couldn't tell. For a while, the forest seemed to hold its breath. No birdsong, no breeze, only the faint sound of the shepherd's shallow breathing and the occasional whimper of her pups. Sarah counted each rise and fall of the dog's chest, terrified that at any moment it might stop. Then, faint in the distance, came the wail of a siren. Sarah's head jerked up, hope lighting her tear-streaked face. "They're coming, Mama! They're coming for her!" Emily squeezed her shoulder, her own throat tightening. "Yes, sweetheart, and we're going to make sure she makes it." The sound grew louder, echoing through the trees until red and blue lights flickered against the branches. The moment felt suspended pain and fear hanging in the air, but also something else, the fragile thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, they had found her in time. The rescue team moved quickly, their practiced hands lifting the shepherd's frail body onto a stretcher lined with blankets. The pups yelped and scrambled after her, their tiny claws scraping against the gravel until Sarah scooped them into her arms. She held them tightly to her chest, their hearts racing as fast as hers. Inside the ambulance, the air smelled sharp with antiseptic and steel. Emily sat beside Sarah, one arm around her daughter while the other steadied the pups. The mother dog lay silent on the stretcher, an oxygen mask pressed gently against her muzzle. Each shallow breath fogged the plastic. When they arrived at the veterinary clinic, the doors swung open and a team rushed her inside. Bright lights, clipped voices, the shuffle of hurried footsteps, it all blurred together. Sarah tried to follow, but Emily caught her hand. "Not yet, sweetheart. Let them work." So they waited. The pups curled in Sarah's lap, their bodies trembling as though they could sense the urgency behind the closed doors. Sarah buried her face in their dusty fur, whispering over and over, "She's going to be okay. She has to be okay." Minutes stretched into an hour, then another. The steady tick of the wall clock filled the sterile waiting room. Emily sat close, her hand resting gently on Sarah's shoulder. She wanted to say more, to offer the kind of certainty her daughter craved, but she couldn't, not until they knew. Finally, the door creaked open. The veterinarian stepped out, her gloves streaked but her expression softened. She pulled down her mask and crouched in front of Sarah. "She made it through surgery," the vet said quietly. "She's very weak, and the next few days will be critical. But she's alive. In power have made, in pace, in frunder accident." For a heartbeat, Sarah couldn't move. Then, her arms tightened around the pups, tears spilling freely as relief broke over her like a wave. "Did you hear that?" she whispered to them, her voice shaky with joy. "Your mama's still here." The pups whimpered softly, as if they understood, their tiny bodies pressing closer to her. Emily drew her daughter into her arms, her voice low but steady. "You did it, Sarah. You helped save them. They've seen many do non hit as well hap as a crossers. He pinned doon it." And for the first time since that roadside moment, Sarah let herself believe it. The clinic became almost like a second home in the weeks that followed. Every afternoon after school, Sarah and Emily stopped by, their visits as steady as the ticking of a clock. The puppies grew stronger first. Within days, their ribs no longer showed, their bellies filled out, and their tails wagged in frantic little bursts whenever Sarah walked into the room. They followed her everywhere, clumsy paws slipping across the tile floor, tumbling over each other in their eagerness. But the mother dog's recovery was slower, a battle fought inch by inch. Her leg was braced and wrapped, her body stitched and medicated. For days, she barely lifted her head. Yet whenever Sarah entered, those tired eyes would flicker open, softening at the sight of the girl who had sat with her through the worst of it. Sarah often sat cross-legged on the floor beside her, homework open but forgotten in her lap. One small hand rested gently on the shepherd's side, feeling the faint rise and fall of her breath. The pups would curl against her legs, sometimes nipping at her shoelaces, sometimes simply sleeping in the crook of her arms. Emily watched from the doorway more than once, her chest tightening at the sight. She had seen her daughter cry that first night, broken by helplessness. Now she saw something else blooming: responsibility, tenderness, a courage deeper than her years. One afternoon, Sarah bent close, pressing her forehead lightly against the mother dog's muzzle. "You're getting better," she whispered. "I can see it, and I'll be here every single day until you're ready to go home." The shepherd let out a slow sigh, eyes half closing in peace. For the first time, Sarah felt the fragile spark of hope grow steady inside her. By the time the clinic declared the shepherd strong enough to leave, the decision had already been made in Sarah's heart. She had whispered it to the puppies countless times, had prayed it in the quiet moments beside their mother's bed. One evening, as they stood in the sterile hallway waiting for the discharge papers, Sarah looked up at her mother with wide, determined eyes. Can we take them home? All of them?" Emily hesitated, the weight of responsibility clear in her gaze. But then she looked at her daughter, at the girl who had knelt in the dirt, who had waded through long nights, who had carried hope in her small hands. Emily's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes, Sarah, they belong with us now." The paperwork was simple, just a few signatures on a page. But to Sarah, it felt like a promise written into her heart, one that would never be broken. The mother dog stepped carefully, her injured leg still supported, but her eyes glowed brighter than before. Sarah had chosen names long ago. Grace for the mother, because she had endured with quiet dignity, and Max and Luna for the pups, because they had been her brave little guides. Together, they left the clinic not as strangers, but as a family. The cabin at the edge of the woods felt different that first night. Where silence once lingered, there was now the soft patter of paws across the floor, the gentle sigh of a dog settling into rest. Max and Luna tumbled after falling leaves in the yard, their laughter like barks carrying into the twilight. Grace lay beneath a tree, eyes calm, watching her children with quiet devotion. Sarah curled beside her, arms wrapped around Luna, heart full in a way she had never known. They had saved the dogs, yes, but in truth, the dogs had saved them too. Sometimes, love doesn't just find us, it shows us the family we never knew we needed.